Are you tired of teammates leaving you, bagging you, or messaging you hateful stuff in Trials of Osiris? Well, look no further. I have some tips for you. I think these are huge tips, especially because the reason I'm going over these ones today is because these seem to be the ones that drove me the most crazy during this past Trials weekend. We also have one more Trials weekend before 2 weeks of Iron Manor. It's okay, though. After that, we'll be back to normal videos, but let's go ahead and dive on in. So first and foremost, knowing the map. That is a huge advantage if you understand what lanes beat what and where to be positioning on the map and what lanes to not be in that will easily get you killed. I'll also be going over some flanking stuff, and then finally we'll go over rezzing teammates, which is something I think we need to talk about. But first, let's go over the map here. So we just came off of having Jav 4. Jav 4 is a very big fan favorite map. We will always most likely have it in Trials rotation, so it's very beneficial to learn this map. I chose this image because I think it summarizes this map pretty well, with the mental illness being outside and the actual map being on the inside. Obviously, this diagram is a little outdated because it still has heavy spawning on the little column that's in between the mental illness side and the real map side. But for the most part, this map is pretty up to date. First, let's start with the mental illness side of the map. This side of the map has barely any cover, a lot of open area. A lot of people can sit there with pulses, snipers, and you can't really hide from it. But Cam, you're going to say, there's a flag that spawns out there. And you are right, there is. However, at least for myself and some of the better players I have played with and against, that doesn't really matter. The flag doesn't become an option until someone is playing very passive and not trying to push you, or you are not pushing them. So you have to force their hand. Most of the time, if the flag is out there, if you spawn on mental illness side, I end up going into where Heavy used to spawn, that little corridor there, and peek shooting and possibly wrapping all the way around to the guys that most likely will be at the other end on their spawn side. Now, that doesn't always work, but for the most part, that's my base play of what I try to do. We'll cover flanking in a little bit, but next let's talk about that spot that I'm trying to look for those guys. That is what I call the death hallway, where if you die there, you're probably not going to get rezzed, and your chances of actually surviving in it are very slim because there are so many angles that can peek in there and not a lot of places to take cover and run away and hide from. On this map, whoever controls the area with Rocket and the little, especially right now with Bygones being what it is, the little section where B flag in control spawns, that ends up being who wins these rounds, just because they have map advantage over everyone else. They can peek into lanes that are easier to see than the lanes you are in and you can't see them from. Another thing, and this is just, I gotta say it, teammates. If you can't get out of the spawn, where you're stuck in this spot right here or this spot over here and you keep dying there, you need to find a way to get into the fight instead of dying in a place where your res causes us to go backwards and lose ground. Next up, let's talk about flanking. And I'm going to hit you with some harsh truths. If you can honestly look at yourself in the mirror and be self-reflective and be like, you know what, Trials isn't really my thing. I want to get better, but it's just not my thing. Then you probably shouldn't be someone who is flanking people. And if you are, there's ways to do it that you're probably not thinking about. And one of those ways is always having an exit strategy. When you flank, it is never a full commitment, right? You never want to just overextend and get yourself picked, because in Destiny with the radar, everyone can see you. You're trying to be a distraction and maybe get a pick, but at the end of the day, survival is more important, and you have to come regroup with teammates if you see that you're at a disadvantage, and sometimes it'll help you clean people up a lot better. I can't stress enough that survivability is the most important. When you go on a flank, it is not a hard commitment. You have to be ready to disengage based off what the situation dictates. If you are constantly flanking and just dying and being a res that is unobtainable, then you're throwing. Now, let's talk about res farming. So I understand it. I truly do, because I was you once. You see a teammate down, you want to res him. The problem is, most of the time when people choose to res, it's with other people, enemies in particular, in close vicinity, and sometimes when you res them, they die immediately. We all know that when you come back to life, there's a brief moment where you can't do anything. In those moments, you're free pickings. I know myself, if I see an enemy getting rezzed up, I kind of let him get rezzed so he's just sitting still, and then I shoot him, and then his timer is doubled and he can't get back into the fight. All you're doing by res farming your teammate is causing them to die an extra death that they have no business dying, and you're probably going to make them rage and they're going to leave, and then you're stuck in a 3v2. It's best to just avoid this. Now, I'm not saying don't ever res your teammates. There's just a time and place to do it. One of the times not to do it is with enemies in close proximity, especially if they have special. Can you imagine, it doesn't happen too much anymore, but getting cloud striked and just wiping your team because you chose to res a guy out in the open? It's very important when you do these reses that they're in cover and they're free reses. Now, I'm not saying you don't res people all the time. Sometimes if it's the difference between winning a round and losing a round, and using a meat shield to protect yourself so you can finish the other guy off, by all means, go for it. But if you're just rezzing because you're scared to be alone, that's not going to win the game. You need to try to get a clean res off to help you and your teammates. Now, with that same token, it's important also to realize that sometimes when a teammate isn't rezzing you, that they're aware of a different situation that you might not be aware of. Maybe they are trying not to get you farmed. Because there are teams and players that will wait for someone to go for a res before they push. They are using you as bait. So there's a good chance that a lot of those teammates you have, the reason they're not rezzing you isn't because they just don't want to res you. It's because they're not trying to get you farmed. They're being conscious of the fact that they don't want to make your experience bad, and that they're not trying to make you just want to pound your head into the controller. So be careful with rezzing. They're good, but make sure that they're free, they're clean, that there's no way that it can go negatively against your team, and that it benefits you guys to get a dub. Well, that's all I got, guys. Hopefully you liked the video. This is my longest one yet. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and press the bell next to subscribe for notifications. Since Iron Banner Week is coming up, I'll probably just be putting up shorts. I won't do much long videos, but then as soon as that's done, I'll be right back. Hope to see you in the Crucible, and GG's.